beautiful people out there. Welcome back. Today is Valentine's Day, but we also have a wonderful session now called Tales of Suspense Spine Chillers. Do you think it's a coincidence? I think not. Well, without further ado, let me introduce you to our moderator today. She is Aradhika Sharma. Aradhika has been writing for close to 3 decades. Her works include articles, life stories, and film reviews. She also runs a popular weekly column for the Tribune called Girls at Gupshup. Ma'am has co-authored a book which was published by Rupa in 2007 called Sunita Williams, Astronaut Extraordinaire. Ma'am, I welcome you and request you to take over the E stage. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
There. Thank you, Sakshi. I extend a warm welcome to my panelists and the viewers to this session where we shall discuss horror, murders, and deeds most foul. The fact that we're doing this on Valentine's Day, the day of love, is actually both amusing and ironical. To discuss the appeal that chills, thrills, murders, mysteries, and creatures from other worlds, such as ghosts, ghouls, and zombies, exert over the human psyche, are the panelists of the session, each one of who has delved into the black shadows of the human subconscious and into the realms of the paranormal. I'd like to introduce Dr. Ketaki Patwardhan Nirki, an anesthetist by profession and a writer by passion. Although her debut novel, Those Enchanted 4.5 Years, was a love story, followed by a suspense thriller, she soon realized that her forte was actually mystery and psychological thrillers, which include The Long Lost Path, The Dangerous Game, The Mysterious Neighbor, and The Destination Wedding. Ketaki is one of the recent recipients of the Biz Tycoon Awards. Then we have Neil De Silva, who is arguably the Stephen King of India. Neil is considered to be one of the forerunners of contemporary Indian horror literature and has 12 books to his credit. His books include Maya's New Husband, Yakshini, Pishacha, Right Behind You, etc. He has published with leading publishers such as Penguin, Random House, Rupa Publications, and Hachette, amongst others, and has bagged screen adaptation deals on 4 of his books. He has been named as one of the top 7 Indian horror writers to be read by UK's Desi Blitz magazine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then we have Sharmishta Shenoy, who is the author of the Vikram Rana murder series. Her books include Vikram Rana Investigates, A Season for Dying, Behind the Scenes, Fatal Fallout, Murder in the Chowdhury Palace, and Silent Witness. She has also published a book of short stories called Quirky Tales. Sharmishta has been an IT professional. She is an MTech from the University of Reading, Great Britain. I'm going to invite each one of the authors to give us a brief history of their journey up to this point, starting with Sharmishta. Sharmishta, are you still working in the IT field or are you a full-time writer?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I am a full-time writer now. I stopped working since 2017, I think. And since that time, I have become a full-time writer. And the journey has been amazing, basically, much more satisfactory than what I did in the corporate. And I finally realized my true calling in life. Going back, if I could change my life, I would have done Master of Arts in English or some other field, definitely not engineering. So that is something that I have realized too late in life, but better late than never. And I find that writing really liberates me. And in the sense that, what happens is that, for example, in my corporate world, I made a lot of enemies, namely my bosses. And what I do is now I make them murderers in most of my stories. But I get rid of all the negativity. So it's very liberating and cathartic. Writing is definitely.
So basically, this is just a short, little account of your journey till here. So how did you start with your first book and where are you at the moment, etc.?
So basically, I've started with Vikram Rana Investigates. That story is pretty interesting. What had happened was I was working and then I took a sabbatical. And at that time, my son always had this habit of listening to stories that I tell him before he will eat. While eating, I have to tell him one story. So while he used to be in school and I was having a sabbatical, so at that time I had no work basically. So I started writing one story in advance, long story, which I would tell him in installments during while he ate. So basically, when I started reading the story, he became very, very impressed. Basically, he said, "Mom, why don't you try to publish this?" So that was the journey. And when I published, it was of self-publication. And when I published, you won't believe it, I printed only 10 copies of the book. I thought, okay, 10 copies, who will buy even those 10 copies?
Right.
Give them away. So that is how the journey has started. But that was pretty well received. Looking back at that book, I would say I could have written better, basically. But even then, I can say that that is how the journey started.
Okay. Neil, so this one's for you. So you were a coaching instructor, I think, and you were running a successful academy. So tell us about your journey from there till here, which is a very strange leap, actually.
Not quite a strange leap for me because my dad was already in the writing field. He used to freelance as a subtitlist for movies from Hindi to English.
Right.
And even at that age, as an adolescent, I would sit next to him and watch him fascinatedly as he would, type the scripts and stuff like that. So the story bug was always in me. And my dad was a big time bibliophile. So my entire house was filled with books of all kinds. So I would just pick up any book and read. And even as a child, when I would read books, my mind would always work like, would I be able to write stories such as this? I would get so immersed in them. And even as a child, I would write comics and stuff like that, share with friends. Then what happened is after my 10th and I did my 12th and then my post-graduation, and immediately things took a turn in such a way that I had to start a coaching class of my own. And I taught in that institute for close to 2 decades. And I love teaching. I still do. And it was a kind of mostly a one-man show. We had more than 500 students. Slowly the teachers and staff and all started building. But a question arose in my mind that will I be doing this all my life? Just batches of students coming and going and I'll be just teaching. And I had this passion of writing. Where will that, fructify? So then somewhere around 2014, when I was married and all, and I had a family already, I had 2 kids. And that time I felt that, okay, now it's time to give vent to my passion. And I discussed this with my wife and she said that if you are so feeling so strongly about it, then do it, write a book. And I was all freelancing until then. So she told me, write a book and let us see how it goes. So
that's quite a leap of faith, actually. Quite a leap of faith.
That was a leap of faith. And I did write a story. I wrote Maya's New Husband, and I did not know anything about the publishing industry. So my first book, I self-published it on Amazon KDP. So, but as fortune would have it, the very next day, the book was ranking #1 on Amazon Hot New Releases and in the Amazon India horror category. Stayed there for a long time, and that is where I knew that okay, I have it in me. I can write stories. Then I started writing, and in 2015 I released 2 more short story collections: The Evil Eye and The Charm, Bound in Love. And then somewhere along the line, I met my literary agent Suhail Mathur of the Book Bakers, and we started shaping up a kind of profile for me. And then Rupa Publications came to me with the first book deal, and that is how Yakshini happened. So Yakshini was my first big release, as I would say, because it was a traditional release. It was it still is in bookstores all over India. Did quite well, quite well, in fact. And soon after, I got published with Penguin Random House on a book titled Haunted, which is a co-authored book with Jay Alani. He's a famous paranormal investigator. I co-authored it with him. And soon after, in 2019 around, I had another deal with Hachette India So that was again a co-authored book with Sarbajit Mohanty, another paranormal investigator. So I took their exploits, like what they did in all these haunted locations, and I put them into books. So both of these books did very well. And right now, as of now, that is 2021, I have 12 books out, and I have 3 deals with Penguin, Rupa, and one more that's coming up. So that's it. That's the short answer.
That's a lot, actually. That's not just it. That's a lot. So coming to Ketaki, Ketaki, you're an anesthetist. So was it your profession that inspired you to write, murder, like, like stunning people on the table and like finishing them, something like that?
No, actually, I have been an ardent reader of mystery thrillers myself, right
Mhm.
from childhood. And I used to write also from my childhood, so Marathi poems, English poems. Then I penned down my first murder mystery when I was in 12th standard. It was a Marathi short story called Khuni Kon. And it was about how a patriarch of the family is murdered and how the cops find out who the real culprit is. And
Hmm.
the focus changes from suspect to suspect. So I realized that I myself love to read such stories which leave you intrigued about what is going to happen next, and they leave you want to read the book, complete the book, at the same time you don't want the book to get completed. That
Correct.
sort of feeling should be incited in the reader. So anything that keeps you on the edge, keeps the adrenaline pumping. That sort of stories I enjoy myself, and probably that is somewhere down the line which prompted me to write those kind of stories. And of course, I get inspired by daily events occurring around me, because I think, yes, being a doctor and being an anesthetist at that, I get exposed to many people with different stories, different histories, and
Hmm.
somewhere the author in me tries to find out something which will help me add some masala to it to make it
Hmm.
into a suspense story.
Okay. And so what's in the next on the anvil? What's coming up for you?
Right now, I am working on 2 stories.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I write a suspense thriller, the first one is not the same as the next one. So there is a different suspense, different story, different background, different
Okay.
protagonist. So,
Hmm.
like the blue envelope which I wrote, it was from the point of view of a male protagonist. So I found it a slightly difficult to write from the point of view of a male psychiatrist who is obsessed with a female patient. So I had to read some stories, similar stories on Quora or other sites, where I could get into the brain of a doctor who is professionally, ethically not allowed to go into that forbidden area, but
Hmm.
his emotions cannot stop him from going into that area. So
Hmm.
basically, I have always been intrigued by psychiatry, because our brain is such a complex, complicated thing that you never know what goes on behind. The person looks very normal to you, but what goes on in his brain you can never judge, and that is what stimulated me to write psychological thrillers,
Okay,
because
I'm
the
going to come
person.
back to that one. I'm going to come back to the kind of work you're doing. This was just an introductory round. So
Okay.
I'm now going to just, go to Shamishta. So Shamishta, I think that you, as the creator of a famous detective, Vikram Rana, are uniquely qualified to comment on another detective who has recently celebrated 100 years of creation. And I'm talking about Hercule Poirot. What is the appeal that Christie's detective has exerted over a century? And is Vikram Rana anything like him?
No, actually not. Vikram Rana is nothing like Hercule Poirot. And when I think about Hercule Poirot, I find when I look back as an author, not as a reader anymore, but
Hmm.
what I find is Agatha Christie made a very big mistake in making Hercule Poirot, a very, very big mistake, and that was he made him an old detective.
Ah,
What happens is that when she wrote the first book, Hercule Poirot was already 70. Now she wrote for another 60 years. So basically, what happens is that Hercule Poirot is basically by that time around 70 plus 60, which is not very feasible. So,
right.
that's the first mistake I tried to avoid. I made this mind detective, Vikram Rana, a young person,
Hmm.
basically, who will probably grow old along with me and probably be still alive while I die. So that.
Right. So yeah, right. So I know that you're when you Google you come out, you're like Mrs. Rana, Mrs. Shamishta Rana. That's what
That's
comes out
correct.
for you, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So basically, yes, I don't want to be Vidwa, basically.
Ah.
So that that is one thing, and the other thing is that what I really like about her Hercule Poirot is that he has made him very, very unique in the sense that my detective, I will say there's a drawback. He is not very unique. He's pretty ordinary. He is like the common man next door. He fears his wife, afraid of his wife. He's henpecked, but he has also flashes of brilliance. Basically, he's not like Hercule Poirot is a bombastic person. He speaks French many times. And he is a bit like Sherlock Holmes, but not exactly Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
So that is one area where I think in this Agatha Christie was basically quite influenced by Arthur Conan Doyle, who must have been the greatest author during her time. So everybody gets influenced. She herself also got influenced. But what happened is, in the end, she got very fed up with Hercule Poirot and she wanted to kill him off also.
Yeah, I think she said that also in one of her interviews that I'm so tired of this man. You know, I'm done with him. So tata bye bye Hercule Poirot. Yeah.
What happened was basically what I feel personally, psychologically, that Hercule Poirot became better than the author. So maybe that was one reason. That was one reason why she got so tired of Hercule Poirot and she wanted to bring in new detectives. Personally speaking, I like Hercule Poirot a lot, but I also like Miss Marple. Miss Marple's stories, if you look at them, they're very entertaining. Whereas Hercule Poirot's stories are logical. So what happens when she's writing the Hercule Poirot stories, she has to think how to make my detective look extraordinarily intelligent. So it becomes very difficult for an author to write, after a certain period of time. The author herself has to be extraordinarily intelligent. I'm not saying Christie is not intelligent or something like that, but every time to get flashes of genius and put that in a story becomes, as a writer, when I come to look back at her writings now, in a better perspective, I find that it must have been quite difficult for her after a certain point of time to write about Hercule Poirot, write a Hercule Poirot mystery, because there Hercule Poirot always has to be extremely intelligent. Whereas Miss Marple, if you look at it, there she is deducting, but she's taking analogies with similar incidences that happened. So there's a difference in the logical thinking process, basically. Hercule Poirot is logically thinking each and every step and deducting, like, okay, A has happened, B has happened, therefore C must happen by now. But with Miss Marple, it's not like that. It says the murderer is like C, therefore that murderer must be C.
Correct. Because that experience has already happened in a small, like in a microcosm, and so on in a bigger scale, it must be a similar, because human nature being what it is.
Yes, exactly. So what happens is that as an author, she doesn't have to think as much as when she needs to think about Hercule Poirot.
Okay.
It's probably one of the reasons, again, why she thought she got tired of Hercule Poirot. My personal opinion.
That's your, yeah, all right. So I'm actually now shifting the question to Neil. I know I'm just going off the format a little bit, but I'm going to do this. So when one talks about horror in the Indian context, right, one cannot but speak of the Ramsays. Yeah. I know you have a unique connection with the Ramsay brothers films. So would you like to share that? You already did, but would you like to share that further with the viewers?
So my knowledge of the Ramsay brothers and their films started way back in the 90s, maybe in the early 90s or late 80s even. I was just 12 or something at that time, 12, 13 when I came to know about them. And that happened because my dad used to, as I just mentioned in my introduction, he would translate movies from Hindi to English. And he has translated in his time all the top producers who were there, including Yash Chopra, Subhash Ghai and all. But his biggest clients and his most prolific clients were the Ramsays. So in those days, Ramsays were like releasing one movie in every 2 or 3 months. They were budget movies, but great. I mean, very strong stories. Tacky makeup, tacky acting, tacky everything else. The movies were good.
Yeah.
So my dad used to get a lot of work from the Ramsays, and he used to work on this Remington typewriter where he used to type the Hindi dialogue here and the next alongside it the English translation of it. And he was a whiz at typing, so he could type even with his eyes closed. I would sit next to him and watch.
Okay.
And also, the producers would give us, in those days, we did not have CDs or cassettes. Cassettes were there, but CDs were not there. So, what we would get was something known as a songbook. So, it was a book, a small booklet kind of thing, which had the pictures from the movie, as well as, so the song lyrics and stuff like that. So, that was given. And that used to come and Dad used to keep it aside with the script, and I used to leaf through it. And of course, because these are Ramsey movies, there were all these pictures of the monsters and all right on the cover. And I used to see that, and they used to terrify me. But because I was just into it, the fear was not so rampant. And so that is where I actually learned how stories are made. Because sitting and reading through a script and working on a script at that age is some of the biggest learning that you can get. In fact, I was in seventh standard. At the same time, my dad used to get so much work that sometimes he used to just pedal on the work to me. That when he went for his day job, he would tell me that see if you can write. And I was good in English, I was good in Hindi, and I could translate. He had taught me that. I also learned typing. And I started typing. And I don't know whether my listeners will believe me when I say this, but it was in my 7th standard vacation that I translated my entire first Hindi movie. And it was completely done by me. And that movie was Amitabh Bachchan's Shehenshah.
Seriously?
Major movie. Yeah. I did it. I did it in my dad's name.
So how do you do Rishte Mein To Hum Tumhare Baap Lagte Hain naam hai Shehenshah?
Exactly.
Please say that in English.
I don't remember what I wrote at that age. So let us keep that aside for now.
Right.
So that was my learning. That was my learning curve. And of course, I mean, all kinds of movies. And when it came to script, I knew what it took. So somewhere, I kept it suppressed for so many years. So of course, that has to, shoot up sometime.
Right.
And that is how it happened when I wrote my first book.
Right. So Ketaki, coming to you, you were actually starting to talk about this, but now I'm going to ask you the question. So what inspired you to write psychological thrillers, and what is the nature of suspense in your stories?
Right, just like I said before, psychiatry is one branch which has really intrigued me. So I have learned about psychiatry in my MBBS, but my specialization is in anesthesia. But still, psychiatry is the subject that draws me towards it because of the complexities of psychological conditions. So there are so many psychological conditions which can exist in even normal-looking people that they are really beyond our imagination. And if you really search for such psychological conditions in people, you will get to have a wide spectrum of diseases which are what you say, every part of the brain can be affected in some way or the other, and that can result in even a slight behavioral abnormality which can have a butterfly effect like thing, because a small event can trigger a long sequence of events. So that is the form of stories I try to write, and every story I try to bring a different type of psychological element. For example, the next story which I am about to publish, The Labyrinth, wherein it is a story of a young middle class girl who is doing her struggling for her everyday livelihood in Mumbai, and then she suddenly gets married to a rich divorcee who seems really like a nice gentleman. But once, and she thinks that there must be some catch, obviously, but she can't find one, can't put her finger on it. But once she gets married, strange things start happening. So what exactly it is? So there is a concept called gaslighting. Means you make a person believe that they are insane by doing certain things, that they start doubting themselves. For this to happen, you have to play a lot of mind games, and I like to bring that type of something like that in my stories. And otherwise, because I am a doctor again, I have a lot of knowledge about forensics. So that knowledge definitely helps me when I write a crime scene, when I write how they deduct things from crime scene, how clues are taken from a crime scene. And I have knowledge about certain poisons which cannot be detected for say 48 hours, or which cannot be detected after certain. So all that information definitely helps me to shape my stories in the desired direction.
Right.
That gives me an edge for being a doctor.
or a murderer for that matter after
Definitely. Tomorrow,
Okay,
if
fine.
something
Just a
happens,
joke.
you'll never be able to,
Just a joke.
catch me.
Actually, I'm going to consult you after this.
I think there are quite a few people
Definitely,
on my
definitely.
list. Yeah. Okay. This one's for you, Shamisha. Again, coming back to the detectives of famous detectives of fiction. There are some sleuths who never go out of fashion. I mean, Hercule Poirot we've already spoken of. Sherlock Holmes, G.K. Chesterton, Father Brown. Why do you think that is? And how are you going to ensure that Vikram Rana, is amongst the ranks of these detectives?
I cannot hope to I can never hope to compete with Agatha Christie. I can't even dream of that, or Sherlock Holmes for that matter. I mean Arthur Conan Doyle for that matter. But what I can do is basically I can entertain the people, and the moment I entertain the people, I want to make Vikram Rana more common person than them, because what happens when you are making your protagonist a common man, there are other common people. My readers are also not very extraordinary people, so they can resonate with the Vikram Rana. There will be some person who is henpecked. There will be some person who has, above average intelligence. There will be a person who was an ex-cop has now gone into the private investigation. So I want people like them to resonate with Vikram Rana, and then they make them feel that Vikram Rana is just a part of them, one of their own. And that is with that hope. And when I try to write my best possible way, and I try to write in such a manner that there is an attention to detail, the people feel that the book is very realistic, highly realistic. And that is how I hope to inch my way into the heart of the people of India. Basically, if you look at my stories, I don't think that they are meant for international audience. Most of the people outside, say for example, UK or US people, may not even understand some of the complexities that I put in. It's all about India, family values of India, and all those stuff. One book of mine is also has a very strong feminist angle, but within the Indian context. So I hope to write stories which the common man can relate, which people like me can relate to. And then also I want to make them the page turners that Ketaki herself talked about. People like to read books which are page turners, which I can't put down. So my aim always is to write books which are unput downable, and that means lots of twists and turns. So this is the way I hope that I will be accepted by the Indian public, and they would love to read. Hope that they will come to expect my next story.
Okay.
Anticipation, but
Right.
that's the only hope I have.
So amen to that. And so Neil, so some of your books, so 3 books have been picked up for making into films. So tell us a little bit about those books.
Okay, so the first book that got attention from the film fraternity was Maya's New Husband. So
Right.
my first book itself, which I self-published. So I had put it up and it did well. And then 3 months later, a producer friend of mine got in touch with me and he said that I would like to make it into a movie. Later on, we got a bigger deal with another production house. So this is Maya's New Husband, and it was one of since it was my first book, I had gone all out and given it everything that I could, and it is horror, so I did not have anything. I did not hold back anything. It was a story of a woman who is married to a person who she does not know anything about, and that person turns out to be a serial killer. He is an Aghori serial killer. So like, in the nights he is an Aghori, and in the daytime he wears normal clothes like you and I, and is a school teacher. So this kind of story.
Okay.
Even so, this story, it really struck a chord because it had everything, that all the masala that an Indian
Very
story.
masaledar, very, very great. Lots of
It
masala,
had
lots
the
of horror.
dynamic of marriage, an Indian marriage, a woman married to somebody, and then it had family values, and it had gore, it had serial killing, it had
ये तो Ramsey's का effect लग रहा है मुझे. This was like a Ramsey effect.
probably the Ramses effect. And I was always fascinated by this lore of the Aghoris. Aghoris are really fascinating people.
Yeah.
So that is how I ended up writing this story, and so this was picked up for a movie production. The only problem with this is since the story is very, very high on gore and it has cannibalism and a lot of things that we would not talk about, making a movie or as it is very difficult. So we have to somehow strike a balance between a literary audience and a movie audience, and that is where the development process of the movie is at right now.
Okay. Okay.
My second book that went on for a movie deal was Yakshini. So Yakshini, I just have the book here, so I'll show it. This is Yakshini, by the way.
Right.
So as Dr. Ketki said, that she is influenced by current events. So even Yakshini was influenced by a current event, and that was tragically the Nirbhaya case. So when that case happened, it really shook me, and for days and days I could not think of other things. And somehow, that would come to me, and I thought that what if that girl had some, the kind of Shakti within her to fight back? If she had fought back against those men, how would the situation of the girl be today? Would society have still accepted her, or would they have branded her as a witch? Because that also happens. So Yakshini was born with that idea, and this is the story of a girl, a Maharashtrian Patil girl, who has a Yakshini spirit within her. So whenever the men try to dominate her, the Yakshini spirit comes out of her and it fights against those men. So this story itself, the logline itself, it made people really take it, give it the story that due attention that it wanted. And we spoke for a TV series on it, a web series on it. I don't know what will eventually happen, but it has definitely been signed on for a screen production.
That's fantastic.
And the third book, this is also, I kept everything handy so that I can show it today. This is the book. This is Haunted, and it is a co-written book with Jay Alani, a paranormal investigator. So Jay Alani goes to all these haunted locations and is very, very famous as a podcaster. He's shows on Ghana.com and all are number one. So with Jay, I had this opportunity to co-write a book and encapsulate 10 of his adventures in the most haunted locations of India. So he has gone to Kuldhara, Bhangad, the Mayang village. These are the places where ordinary people like you and I will not go.
Yeah.
He has gone there and he has spent whole nights with barely anything and no internet connection, no mobile connection, nothing. And he has just explored there whether ghosts are really there in those places or not. So this book got a major deal. The deal is with it is called as Juggernaut Productions. It is a sister concern of the Epic channel.
Okay.
So they are making a web series on it of 10 episodes. This is already in development. So I think out of all my books, Haunted will be the one that will hit the screen first.
That sounds really interesting. We really look forward to seeing your stuff on screen.
Just to complete, recently I had one another deal on my book titled Ringa Ringa Roses. So this is children protagonists in horror sequence scenarios. So, but I have not kept my children as evil or something like that. My children are in fact heroes. They fight against the monsters. So I was also a very cowardly kid when I was growing up. So it is a reflection of me, how I fought my own monsters and I became a writer today. So Ringa Ringa Roses has also got a movie deal for one of its stories called as The Clay Mother. This is where I stand with my movie adaptations.
You're standing pretty high, I would say. Thank you. So this one's for Ketaki. Your themes, Ketaki, are pretty sensational. The Dangerous Game, for instance, explores the darker side of sexual perversions. And in The Blue Envelope, the protagonist is a psychiatrist who's smitten and obsessed by a client, correct? So tell us about the delving into that aspect of the human psyche.
Yeah, so like I said, everyday events always inspire me. And The Dangerous Game, actually, probably this is the first time I'm telling this to somebody, but it is inspired by a true event. It was told to me by a friend. It was her experience. She had a school friend with whom she lost touch. And there was some chemistry when they were young. But now, after marriage, after having kids, when he came back in contact because of WhatsApp and all, they started hanging out like friends. And she thought she would have that sort of camaraderie back with him. But eventually, as time went on, she realized that he has some evil intentions, and slowly he started bringing those darker sides into his acts. And then there was a period when she found herself trapped Of course, my story is much more complicated than what the real story was. But
Yeah.
this itself gave me an idea where the protagonist feels, like a midlife crisis, where husband is good, child is good, but somewhere she lacks the daily surge of adrenaline, the daily thrill, and then she gets sucked into a game of cat and mouse with the guy,
Hmm.
and she reaches a point where she can't even reveal it to her husband, but she can't go ahead with him.
Hmm.
So what does she do? And on
Hmm.
one hand, that guy has come with some intentions, and he is hell-bent on getting those things done from her. So
Hmm.
the crux of the story is how exactly she gets out of it, what sort of techniques she has to use to come out of it. So again, it
Okay.
is a suspense story where I have tried to end every chapter on a cliffhanger, and
Hmm.
the reader has to read it till the end to know exactly what happens.
Okay.
So that story was really inspired by a true event.
Hmm.
And Blue Envelope was again, like I said, it was to explore one side of psychiatry, where the psychiatrist himself feels like he needs a psychotherapist to bring him out of his obsession. So he is obsessed with a female client, female patient of his, who is
Hmm.
he himself is a ordinary psychiatrist, and
Hmm.
he gets a wife of a multimillionaire as his patient, who
Hmm.
wants to stay anonymous. Says that you are a doctor who will not be highlighted in the media, and that is why I'm consulting you, sort of thing.
Hmm.
And then suddenly she dies. So it is a suicide, it is a murder, it is accident, nobody knows. And now he is stuck in the guilt of getting involved with her emotionally, as
Hmm.
well as somewhere he realizes that he is a pawn in a greater scheme of events. So how he comes out of it on a personal place, he is somewhat estranged with his wife, but
Hmm.
his wife is a lawyer who comes to his rescue, and how they together overcome this, whether they find out what exactly happened to her. That forms the story. So it explores the psyche of everybody, the wife,
Okay.
the psychiatrist, the patient, everyone.
Wow.
And
Okay, Shamishta, this is for you about your villains. We've spoken about your hero, but about your villains. So, are they basically truly evil people, or are they driven by circumstances? What makes your villains stick?
Yeah. So basically, my villains, I have been accused by some people, that I make my villains look like the victims themselves, at least in
Okay.
the books. So it is circumstances that make them what they are.
Hmm.
For example, for example, in one of my books, the wife is a neglected wife,
Hmm.
and then she finds out that her husband is having an affair with somebody else,
Hmm.
and that makes him. She is madly in love with her husband, but the husband day after day neglects her, and how she gets back. And then in the end, the audience actually feels more sympathy for the murderer than for the victim. So that I have been accused. That was absolutely unknowingly done.
Okay.
Okay, so but that was one. People have written back, and I got rejected by a few publishers because of that. One of the reasons that was given is that this is not good for the image of the publishing house. The
Hmm.
for example, other stories. Person has been rejected and in love, and how he gets back to that rejection. How he is not able to take it positively,
Hmm.
how he gets his revenge. So basically, none of my stories have this psychological angle, that a psychological, that narcissist person or a psychopath is is an act here. It is just circumstances that make that person a murderer. Basically, you can say he's himself a victim of his circumstances.
Okay. Neil, this is for you. So, the audience gets used to a certain degree of horror. Okay. Then they require more, and then they require more to elicit the revulsion and fear. So, do you feel the pressure of having to get scarier and more intense?
You
And then
mean
how do you surmount that?
you mean with all the books across the books?
Yes, I mean, what happens is it's like it's like any, so you see goat, then you're kind of done with that. You want more. So how do you kind of, basically feed that? Yeah,
And this is a very good question because
thank you.
and for me it applies a lot because as I told you, Maya's New Husband was all out horror. So
Yeah,
there was everything in it. There was every kind of revulsion that I could think of.
correct.
I challenged myself to write the goriest scenes in Maya's New Husband. So that
Right.
set the bar so high.
Correct.
So now, when I was moving on and I was thinking of other plot concepts, like how I would write something,
Hmm.
so I questioned myself that can I go one up on Maya? You know, what can I do differently?
Yeah.
So that word I hung on to it differently. So I needed to approach horror from a different perspective.
Correct.
So Maya was about gore. And then I know that horror is not just gore. There are a lot of different kinds of horror. We talk about subgenres of horror.
Hmm.
Like we have paranormal horror, we have supernatural horror, and we have horror which is high on atmospherics. We have psychological horror, of course, which we are talking about a lot today. So what I have done is I have tried to write horror in different spaces. Like Yakshini, when you talk about it is not Maya kind of horror. It is not gore, but it is a supernatural drama horror, which also has a lot of mythology in it. Because of course there is Yakshini, so there is this entire sequence of Kuber and how the Yakshinis are and stuff. So that is a very different kind of a book. I wrote Pishach somewhere down the line, and Pishach was the story of a Pishach, a ghoul, who is in love with a human woman. So that is a paranormal romance. So that is again a different kind of horror. And that is a sweet kind of horror because it is a paranormal romance.
Right.
So this is how I try to, reboot myself, and I try to explore different territories. I am writing now. Now I just recently got a deal on this Sapna's Bad Connection, which is coming out this year. So that is a digital horror. So it is a horror about a woman who is getting stalked via chat and via messages by an ex-boyfriend who died 8 years ago. So he died 8 years ago, but still he is stalking her. So it is cyber stalking, but by a ghost. So that is Sapna's Bad Connection. I recently got a deal for that.
Wow. Okay.
Then I'm also writing about the horror of the 80s Hollywood. If you see the 80s Hollywood, there was like Child's Play and the slasher flicks. And that is a different kind of horror which has not yet been completely tapped in India. So I'm writing something which is very close to Child's Play or like Goosebumps and all. So just closing in on a deal with that also. So, so this is how I do it, Aradhika. I explore different horror is pigeonholed in various categories.
Right. So it's not that you're trying to top yourself, but you're just going different in different channels.
Something different. And I'm also writing sequels to Maya's New Husband. So, there I will need to find scenes which are more dramatic than what they were when Maya's New Husband won. So that's happening. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, Ketaki, for you, who are your protagonists? Who are these people? I mean, where do you get your inspiration from your main guy? एक दो तो आपने share किया कि there were some people actually from real life, but apart from that, who are these people?
Generally, I try to change the protagonist in every book.
Okay.
So in one book, my protagonist is a female anesthetist. In another, it is a male psychiatrist. In yet another, the most recent, the latest of my books, Who Killed Mr. Mehta. So here it is a ordinary man again who is married, who is in his midlife crisis, and he is chatting. He gets an anonymous message on his Facebook Messenger, and he just starts chatting, thinking that it is just a innocent time pass flirting sort of thing, and somehow he gets honey trapped. And one fine day, he finds himself next to the body of a high profile businessman, murder weapon in his hand, blood on his clothes, stack of cocaine in his car, and he has absolutely no idea how he ended up there. So now this is a common man who you can see, the man next door, he could be. But how he comes out of it, because every evidence is pointing against him, and there is just there is a pressure from everybody to close the case, because now they have their the culprit in their hands on a platter, red-handed. He has been caught red-handed. But there is only one female police officer who believes his part of story, because all the digital track, all the messages and everything has been completely erased, which is really easy to do now in these days. So it has been erased, and he has absolutely no proof of his innocence. But the one female inspector who believes him tries to track down alone what exactly happened, and how she gets him out and finds out what exactly happened, who exactly killed Mr. Hiren Mehta. That forms the story. So basically, my protagonist is can be anybody, just a man next door, a woman next door, or a high-profile psychiatrist, or a doctor. But the way the story progresses, I try to go into the brains of each and every character who is important to the story. Sometimes I change the point of views in between the story to just give the other side of the story, of what the next other person is thinking. So that way the story becomes slightly more interesting, and ultimately how the story goes ahead through all of these twists and turns
Hmm.
makes the story interesting. Because
Okay.
if it goes streamlined, I myself won't enjoy reading it. So I
Correct.
like to
Correct.
have ups and downs. So at one point I think, okay, so this is the person, and the next chapter it is revealed that he is also innocent, so then who next? So it keeps
Okay.
on changing, and that way I try to write the story.
Till that.
I
Yeah.
have
Okay.
actually, I have a Facebook page, group with more than 2.5 thousand readers. So
Mhm.
I keep on posting chapter by chapter on this page, and luckily the readers give me a lot of feedback, and
Okay.
many times that their feedback helps me to shape the story further. So that is one advantage I get with posting chapter by chapter.
All right. Okay. So, Shamishta, before you go, because you're going off and on, so I'm going to just grab you while you're here. So, one thing that occurs to me is that most of the fictional successful detectives are male. So, do you think there's like some kind of an unconscious gender profiling happening here? And your, I mean, just yeah. So, your detective is also male. So, in that context, yeah.
First of all, my apologies for switching off the video.
No problem.
I've had an allergic
No problem.
Okay, so the other thing is that yes, I considered having a female protagonist as a detective, but the problem here that I was facing, I really, really wanted to. But Murder in the Chaudhary Palace has a female protagonist. Is Durga a very strong woman, and I want all my characters to have to be woman centric and very strong. But the problem here that I faced was that when Rana does many things, like he chases gundas,
Hmm.
and then he is working very closely with a ex-colleague of his, and I don't want that romance angle in that one,
Hmm.
you know. So and the other thing is that he can go to places where generally a woman would not. It is not very realistic, basically.
Hmm.
I can make my woman detective go and fight people and then give them one mukka, one gushi, a karate chop or something. But it is not very realistic. So
Hmm.
that is the main reason why. And being I mean, I was a newbie writer, and I just didn't know how to make it convincing. So I should write something about which I'm myself very convinced at this point of time. So
Hmm.
that was the reason why I made my protagonist Vikram Rana, and I never anticipated that Vikram Rana would become so popular at one point of time. So
Hmm.
at that time, I was writing whatever I was feeling comfortable, and I was writing for myself basically.
ठीक है.
Now the perspective has changed after so many books, because I get very bad feedback sometimes in Amazon saying, why have you done this, or why have you done that?
अच्छा.
But as they say that you are not successful as an author unless you get a 1 star at some point of time.
For sure. So
So
are you actually, would you consider, just changing your detective, or would you just stick with Vikram Rana? Would you have another, like, there was like Poirot and Marple. So would you have Rana and Rani, maybe?
yes, Rana and Rani maybe after a certain point of time, but
Yeah.
not right now.
Okay.
That urge should come from inside me.
Right.
That comes, I will write. But
You
right
will.
now, it is not there.
Nah, and right now there's no Rani on the scene.
No
Okay.
Rani at the same.
Right.
I'm the only Rani. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Neil, so, there's a variety of horror that the West has to offer in terms of books and films like The Conjuring, Insidious, and psychological horror films like Oculus. How do you think that the horror genre in India compares with that to the West? Is there a long way to go?
There is a long way to go. The
Okay.
reason being, horror has just, mushroomed again in 2015. That is what I always maintain. So when I was writing Maya's New Husband, there was no horror author on the scene. There were a couple of people who were writing, but it was few and far between. One book in several years or something like that. There was no consistent horror writer, and even the horror movies had dwindled out because the Ramses were not there. Ram Gopal Verma had stopped making his horror movies he used to make,
Yeah.
and he lost his touch. Also, Vikram Bhatt's movies were not working out. So,
Yeah.
horror movies were also, even that space was not working out.
Hmm.
And when Maya happened, I think, and along with it, a few more horror writers came on the scene, Indian horror writers, and the Indian readers suddenly became aware of this genre once again.
Yeah, they're very popular, very popular. People are just watching that stuff all the time.
Now
Yeah.
it is very popular once again, but it is still very nascent
Right.
because the West, when we consider the US, they have got a long history of horror,
Yeah.
right from the 30s,
Right.
even before that. But I
Correct.
think their horror, the flag of horror has never come down. It has always been flying high. Something or the new is going on happening, and there were people like Stephen King, Robert McCammon, and so many others, Richard Lehman, who are just putting out work. Some of them are not with us anymore, but the work is consistently coming out.
Correct.
So now one of the things for me, I'm also the president of the Horror Writers Association's India chapter. So that is what I intend to do with that, is to bring this horror community closer of India, because I strongly believe that horror as a genre will work in India only when the authors come together as a community, because we authors are very segregated and very few and far between right now. So the thing is, we have to prove to our readers that, okay, we are going to consistently give you Indian horror, and there were a lot of books that are coming from us and interesting ones. So then the Indian readers will take us seriously, because what is happening right now is like it is a one-off book. Okay, one Indian author's book came, we read it. Now what? Now what will we read? So let us go back to Stephen King. So that kind of thing is happening in India. So we don't have that consistency. You spoke about some great movies. You spoke about Conjuring, Insidious, and Oculus. Now, Conjuring and Insidious are both based on paranormal investigator stories. The what ifs. Right. So that is what I have tried to do with both Haunted and The Spirits Talk to Me, because I have collaborated with Indian paranormal investigators. Conjuring was also the same kind of thing. It was a paranormal investigation of a house. So we have done that already in India. So we have these books, and when they go to screen, I'm sure the viewership will increase. So that is already happening. Now, to talk about Oculus. Oculus was already made in India as the movie's name was Dobara. It was made by a friend of mine, Vikram Kakkar. He made the movie.
Achha.
So we already made that, but it was a reboot of that movie. So we are working in the same zone a lot. So that is psychological horror. Oculus is completely psychological horror, mind bending. So we are doing a lot of that stuff in India also, but give us some time, and be with us. So that is what
we are with you. We are with you. We are. Everybody's like watching with horror.
I'm talking to all the people who are listening to us, because I know that Shulini Lit Fest is going out to thousands of people. Okay. So this is a kind of thing that I want to tell through this platform, is that Indian horror writers are unique, because we are born into a culture of horror. You remember the times when we were children and we were sitting on campfires and gardens and just discussing horror stories. Mere saath ye hua, mujhe ye bhootni dikhi and all. So we have a very strong oral tradition of horror. Go to any village or go to any nook and corner of India, there is a horror story. Mumbai itself, I come from Mumbai. So Mumbai itself has, like 30 haunted locations. The Mukesh Mills is so famous, people don't go there. So, that kind of things, we have such strong horror undercurrents within us. But now is the time to bring it out in literature, and we will, because horror is a genre which always attracts a big readership. But the thing is, stay with us and give us a chance among all those Stephen Kings and Dean Koontzes and Neil Gaimans that you read.
Just that you're saying this thing about the oral tradition. I remember, I'm just sharing with you here. We had a maid when we were little in Calcutta. We grew up in Calcutta, and her name was Pushpa. And when my parents would go out at night, she would regale us with stories, amongst which were Chudail ki kahaniyan from the village. And you could identify a Chudail because her feet would be ulta, and one breast would be here and one breast would be here, like slung across her opposites. Shoulders. So these were the stories that we kind of grew up on. I think maybe I was 9 years old. My sister was cowering under the bedsheet at 3 or something like that. So that
is what I want to do. These kind of stories which you tell me, and which our maids tells us. Those stories need to be in books.
Yes. Neil, I have a question. Why do you make all the these bhootnis?
Sharmishta, I'm very sad saddened to hear that from you, because if you see my books, my heroines have all, I mean, I have all heroines, I don't have heroes. My book Yakshini is the story of Meenakshi, so she's the heroine, and all my books are female centric. I actually have not till today written a story where the male is the hero. So I have spoken
hero
about
in
this
this
on
context, a hero in your context, a hero is like which one? Who is the hero? The guy who's like scaring the
Yes.
Jesus out of
Because
people,
my,
or
my,
is he
my,
the
my,
one
my
who's
villains were
Yeah,
Agni
exactly.
and Pishach, so they were male. So my villains are male and my protagonists are women. So you cannot give levy that
Okay, so okay, fine. So there's a question just now from one of the viewers. They are saying, ki basically, how do you curtail the common cliches of your genres? How do you contain those, or how do you combat those? So this goes out to all three of you. So I'm going to let Shramishta go first.
Yes, basically, you see, it is sometimes not possible, especially when I started writing out. There were a lot of cliches, and I will admit very frankly, yes, there were cliches. But as I grow in experience, I understand that these are the traps that I'm going through, and then I try to very consciously try to avoid those cliches. And
Okay.
basically, the reader feedback and the beta reader feedback also helps a lot, because I strongly believe in beta readers, and they have been amazing to me. They have actually given me very excellent feedbacks, and sometimes they will point it as an author. Sometimes I don't realize that this is a cliche. This is what is happening, because this is my baby. My baby is always beautiful, right?
Right.
It's only when the beta reader points out that I do understand, and I have a very good editor. She also is very brutally honest, to be honest with you. So yes, so these are the steps that I have taken to avoid the cliches now.
So what would the cliche be? Typically, like what would a cliche be for you in your
For
work?
example, the cliche would be like, okay, Vikram Rana has gone somewhere, and it just happened that there was a murder in that place.
Uh-huh.
Typical cliche.
Okay.
Yeah, or oh, okay, Vikram Rana comes back, and immediately one clue has happened there. So that cliche always used to happen initially. The first definitely happened, but after that, I have really tried to avoid it.
And okay, what about you? Okay, sorry. Please complete what you were saying.
I just said it just comes with experience.
Achha, okay.
Avoid the
Ketaki, what would you like to say for your work? How do you avoid cliches? What would they be first and foremost? And then how do you make sure that you don't, your work is not cliched?
One thing I would like to mention, I'm not sure this is related or not, but when I was small, we watched the movie Hindustani. So it was a high strung drama, and there were songs in between, and those songs were good, high energy songs which we enjoyed, but they were unrelated mostly to the context. At that time, my school friend had told me that when something is very high tension, you have to give something in between as a breather, and that is why these songs are introduced. So while writing a story, I know that it is a high tension story. It is like a suspense thriller where you are also tense. But basically, reading is a leisure thing. So when my reader is reading, I don't want him to be more frustrated than his usual life from which he wants a break. So I try to introduce with a small romantic track or a small comedy track to which should seamlessly blend into the story, but at the same time should not remove the tension and drama, but should not be very high tension and suffocating for the reader. So I think one of the cliches is continuously something is happening and you don't have a breather. So that should be removed from the read. But suppose a romantic track is there, it should not feel forced into the story for just for the sake of it, or it should not be cringeworthy, because many times when I read, I find romantic tracks becoming cringeworthy beyond a point.
Yes.
So it is a skill to combine these genres. So mainly my genre is a suspense, but in that if I want to introduce romance, it has to be seamlessly mixed into it. So it should feel like a flow of the story, because every person who even though suppose some drama is going on in his life, it is not a constant happening every second. So there are some moments of respite, and those moments of respite have to be given to the readers. So
Okay.
that is why I include such tracks into my stories.
Neil, actually, I think you've already answered this
No,
question.
but I have to answer this in the
Go
context of
for it.
The
Go for
reason
it.
is, because I'll give a very short answer, but the thing
Right.
is, cliches are the death of horror. If suppose you will not get scared of the same thing twice,
True.
so, and that is the reason, and this is a problem that Indian horror film producers have not understood for the longest time, because
Hmm.
even today you will hear creaking doors and fluttering
Oh yeah.
curtains and woman in white. People have gone, completely, they have become immune to those things. They don't get
Right.
scared of those things anymore. So that is the reason I need to answer this, and I will just say that when I write horror, I try to keep away from all these things, the common
Hmm.
entrapments which you call, which people do not get scared of anymore. So I
Hmm.
spend a lot of time reading the reviews of readers on horror novels and horror
Hmm.
movies on
Hmm.
Goodreads and IMDb. Yes, so
Hmm.
I read and I see that what has worked and what has not worked. And
Okay.
always, you have to challenge yourself. In horror, I do believe that if I don't get scared of the scene, I am not going to be able to make my reader get scared of it. So that
Right.
is my first and foremost thing that I have in mind. And I never plot my novels. I just have a kind of idea in mind. I have a theme in mind. And once
Mm-hmm.
I have a theme in mind, I enter into the scene as my protagonist would, and
Hmm.
I get myself also scared with the protagonist. So
Okay.
I also do not know when the monster is going to come in front of me in the story. So that's how I write.
Okay. Okay. So there's another question from a reader, which so she's asking or he's asking, do you think that horror and psychological, basically, mind games have a negative impact on the reader?
No,
So
I
they
would
don't.
say no. The reason, see, I'll give my own example. As
Hmm.
a child, I was scared of each and everything possible. I was scared of
Hmm.
cockroaches and lizards and going
Hmm.
out in the dark.
Hmm.
And I was scared of, I would be terrified when there would be a death in the
Hmm.
society, because
Hmm.
I would just believe that that person's ghost is going to come in my house now.
Hmm.
So, I was scared of each and everything. And
Hmm.
I grew up in a very, a house which was somewhat secluded, and the colony was also like that,
Hmm.
large one. So what happened is, as I wrote horror,
Hmm.
even though I was scared of several things, horror was also at the same time, it fascinated me, because the books that I used to read at that time, they were mostly horror books. I would
Okay.
read Dracula, Frankenstein, and I would read it just because I was scared. So I wanted to come out of it.
Hmm.
And when I started writing horror, it was not a plan that I would write horror just because horror
Hmm.
works. It was
Hmm.
just it was that the story came to me. They were dark stories.
Hmm.
So when I wrote these horror stories, I started challenging myself, and slowly I came out of it. So for me, it has definitely worked in a very positive way. Now I'm
Okay.
not scared of the things that I was scared of earlier. So no, it does not have a negative impact on you.
It doesn't. Horror doesn't.
It is like bungee jumping. If you are standing on the edge of the cliff, you will be terrified that what is this? Where I'm going to plunge to my death. That is
Hmm.
what you feel. But the moment you go and you let yourself go, that is when you feel that this is something that I did, and now I am happy that I did it. I have
Right.
conquered one of my fears. Dar ke aage jeet hai. So
Obra Khanji.
that is what horror does. And the horror
Right.
that we write, why do we challenge ourselves? We
Hmm.
challenge ourselves because we go into those areas where we have not gone before. And we come out braver with each horror scene that we write, and also as viewers with each horror movie that we watch.
Okay, I'm not so sure that I agree with that, but doesn't matter. So actually, I don't think this really applies to Shamishna, because it's not like detectives novels really have a very negative, but psychological novels, on the other hand, where you're kind of messing around with the mind, might have a negative impact on the readers, because they may either sort of give them, supposing a person is going a particular way and then there's another person by example, so things could become all right, which are actually not all right at all. What do you want
I
to say
would
about that?
I would say that such psychological thrillers will
Hmm.
open the third eye of a person to know how somebody's mind works. So they
Okay.
will make life more interesting for the reader. At the same
Right.
time, they will make him more, make him more open his eyes and ears more towards the other persons. Imagine what the other person is thinking, in what other ways he can think, because right now he is going in a simple way, thinking as per his own brain. But now he might start to, guess what is going on in the other person's mind, and that might give him a advantage in his own life situations.
Okay, so
So I
what
think
if
we
there is
can.
a Me Too murder? They have all these Me Too murders and Me Too crimes. So supposing that were to happen, then
This is a possibility, but again, I think ultimately it will
Not for
depend on
horror.
the.
It's like,
No,
No, but I can
actually,
talk other
recently,
genres. It's not
recently
that I'm
there has
slotted
been
in.
one incident where a 13-year-old boy killed an
right.
11-year-old boy, and
Yes,
he,
yes, yes.
if you have read, and
Correct.
what he has confessed was that he was inspired by Crime Patrol. So now, when
Yeah,
they showed Crime Patrol, it was for some other intention.
correct.
But how one person takes it actually is beyond you. You can never guess what one person thinks after watching these things. They are made to
Correct.
show in a positive way, but
Correct.
out of 100 people, one person might take it in the wrong way and
Yeah.
might use it in the wrong way.
That's right. I mean, it is not the responsibility of the author to see how the other person, what's going on in the reader's mind. It's the reader's responsibility to
And
accept it
one
in
thing,
a responsible
Aradhika,
manner.
like,
Hmm.
Makes the
I
reader more
I need
aware.
to just
It
Yes.
say
makes the
something.
reader more aware that
Hmm.
okay, these kind of people do exist, and it
Hmm.
increases the knowledge, and the reader becomes even I, for example, I will look at one person very suspiciously now.
Hmm.
Should know that person before trusting him, and
Hmm.
blindly go and trust another person. Because
Right.
of such incidences, I won't know.
Right.
So, see, psychology is a very big part of horror. You cannot
Correct.
have horror without
Hmm.
psychology. So, we need to be aware of how this works. Now, even when you write a serial killer novel for that matter,
Hmm.
you are definitely working on a psychological level, correct? So,
Hmm. Hmm.
it makes you conscious of what might happen, of the kind of depravity that might exist in the world. Now,
Right.
here I would give examples of novels like The Silence of the Lambs, where
Yeah.
the entire psychology of the serial killer is explained.
Hmm.
What do we know from that? We know that such people exist. Or a show
Hmm.
like Mindhunter, which
Hmm.
shows so many
Hmm.
people who have gone to that extreme lengths. Now,
Correct.
so this is something that is a very big part of horror as well.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yes.
even I, the one story which I have written, A Rose Amongst Thorns. Here, the
Hmm.
protagonist herself is one who is a con artist. She keeps on, trapping boys for her own gains. Then she steals from them. If need be, she kills them and she moves on to the next person. I actually got this idea from a newspaper, news
Hmm.
about a woman who had, duped so many people of their lakhs of rupees. And then one fine day, she murdered somebody, and then that was when she was caught. So
Hmm.
that incident, that news gave me the idea of writing the story, and this
Hmm.
was the first time when I wrote from the point of view from a protagonist who herself is the serial duper or serial murderer, and
Hmm.
that is the time when I went into the brain, the psychology of the woman who does it very casually. These people don't have any empathy. When we do something wrong, we feel a guilt, but there are people who do not feel that guilt, and that is why they can continue doing that. So lack of empathy is a very big thing in psychology.
Hmm.
Narcissism is a very
Hmm.
big thing in psychology, which can be observed in so many people around us. 40% people are narcissistic, and we don't even know till we actually face the brunt of that behavior when we deal with them in our own situations.
Right.
Especially corporate bosses, you know.
Ah. So she has left the corporate, so now she's the one sitting and commenting on them left, right, and center.
Yeah,
Social
seriously,
media has made
I
all of us
honestly
narcissists.
feel that. I honestly feel that you cannot go into climb the corporate ladder
Hmm.
largest extent unless you are a narcissist or a psychopath. Have
Okay.
total lack of empathy.
Okay. But Neil, you used a very interesting word, depravity. Yeah. So, I mean, why are you using that word? It's an interesting insight.
See,
Uh,
thing stems from the mind, right? So
Hmm.
I believe we are all regulated and controlled by what our mind thinks, and
Right.
that makes us what we are. So today we are sitting with a psychiatrist, we are sitting with somebody who writes psychological thrillers. So
Right.
it's all in the mind. So
Right.
and till today we do not know how the mind would function, what
Hmm.
are the kind of reactions that people would have, and the
Hmm.
same kind of stimulus can elicit different reactions in different people.
Hmm.
So, as a horror writer, as a builder of my stories, what I like to do is to explore those dark caves.
Right.
Like what would be an extreme reaction to a stimulus,
Hmm.
the most extreme. So that is where horror lies. That is a spectrum of horror, and that is what I call as a depraved mind, like a person who would function in a completely different way from what we term as normal people would behave. So that
So
is.
all of you are actually delving into these dark spaces, all of you, in your own ways. There are these dark machinations, and there are these dark deeds, or there are these dark motives. And does it affect you in any way? So I'll just go one by one. Let me start with Ketaki. And I think this is probably the last question. And then we just,
Okay.
maybe if we have time, we'll wind up with a minute each, and then we're done. Tell me.
I think my husband will be a better person to tell whether it affects. But yes, I do dream when I am very intensely writing a story. I
Right.
do get some dreams related to the characters of my story and sometimes nightmares, which may or may not be related to the story. But I think some deep impact of the story, it does affect me in some ways because I
Okay.
have to go into the character, into the skin of the character,
Hmm.
and think like he does, think like a murderer, or think
Hmm.
like a forensic pathologist. So all
Hmm.
these things, they cloud my brain, and maybe they are in the subconscious. They
Hmm.
do not manifest in conscious, but at in my REM sleep, they definitely make their presence felt.
Did you?
So yes.
Okay. Shamishta, what about you?
Yeah, for me, my murder mysteries are very cozy murder mysteries, you can say.
Hmm.
So there is not much to be afraid of. What
Hmm.
I am afraid is I am afraid that my readers will understand who is the murderer. It's
So who the murderer is? Okay. Figure that
That
out.
is the
Okay.
reference.
Hmm.
Okay, so in my case, what I do is I try to organize it like a puzzle. You know,
Hmm.
a puzzle, a difficult puzzle to solve, and in there I have to keep red herrings also, because suddenly
Hmm.
I introduce the murderer at the last chapter and say, okay, this is the murderer.
Hmm.
That can't be done. The
Hmm.
murderer has to be right in front of you, and yet still you won't be able to guess it. So
Hmm.
this is the challenge that I face. So
Hmm.
sometimes I just sleep over it and suddenly it comes. Sometimes I'm driving around and
Hmm.
just like that it comes. Bingo! Yeah, this is what I can do
Hmm.
to cover this track. So
Hmm.
basically, so for me the challenge is not that I'm horrified with what the murderer is saying
Hmm.
doing. The murderer in my case is always a victim of his circumstances. So there is
Right.
a psychopath or a narcissistic person really involved here.
Okay. Neil, what about you? This probably is applicable to you more than anybody else.
Yeah. So normally I'm a very casual, friendly person. People
Hmm.
cannot even understand that I write horror if they
Hmm.
don't know me.
Hmm.
But when I'm writing a book, I
Hmm.
am the worst person to live with. I will,
Okay. Acha. How's that?
because I go in these silent spells.
Hmm.
Because I know that if I don't go into silent spells, I'll become grumpy and grouchy
Okay.
and snap at everybody. So the thing is, if I'm to write a good horror novel, I need to get into that scenario. I am
Hmm.
giving something to the world, and the reader who is taking that book from me is expecting that they will read one of the scariest things that they have read.
Correct.
So I
Hmm.
have to go into that zone. So
Hmm.
what I do is to save myself from that trouble and to save other people from that trouble, because my wife does not like me when I'm writing a novel. She
Right.
doesn't like me during those days.
Right.
So what I typically do is I go on writing trips. I go to places. I went to Goa in 2018, Shimla,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I just go. I hold myself up in a hotel room,
Hmm.
and that is where I
Nice,
write my novel.
that is very nice.
And then I
Okay.
come back so that I am happy, everybody's happy, and eventually my publishers and readers are also happy. So,
Absolutely.
yes, that's it.
Take a lift from your book. Yes, yes.
I just go away. I just zone out.
Yeah, so I would like to answer one question that Manju has put for me.
Yeah.
Relation with Vikram Rana, does it interfere with your day-to-day life? No,
Hmm.
I was obsessed with Vikram Rana, but now with Corona and everything, with my son and husband at home, they managed to kick Vikram Rana totally out of the home. So absolutely no obsession, and it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life. No.
At all. Okay, so I think we have a minute each. Manju's just come on and said we've got one minute each. So I'm going to give you your famous last words for a minute each, and then we are done with this great session. I really loved having this, by the way. Okay, Ketiki, you go first.
Okay, so thanks a lot for having me here. And I would say, do take a look at my books, which are psychological thrillers. Each book is different from the other, and it will definitely take you all along the roller coaster ride of emotions, as well as psychological disturbances, and they will leave you feeling good as well as bad, as well as wanting for more, as well as full. Thank you.
Fantastic. Shamishta,
Yes. So please buy my books.
lovely.
Palace, Silent Witness. So basically, buy my books because I promise you, you won't feel bad about it. You will get entertained. And buy my books from my bookstore if you want to get signed copies at cheaper rates than Amazon.
Very nice.
So
Neil?
my thanks to Sholini Literature Festival for having this interesting panel, because most Lit Fest do not have horror panels. So thank you very much for this. Thank you, Aradhika, for being such a wonderful moderator and for asking the right questions. Thank you, Dr. Ketki and Sharmishta, wonderful co-panelists, of course. And my only words for my readers is read horror. Whether you read my books or not does not matter, but read the horror genre. Thank you.
That is very gracious, Neil. I hope to be so gracious, but I would like to thank Sholini. I would like to thank Manju. I would like to thank Aradhika. You have been wonderful. Neil and Ketaki, you have been also fantastic. And I would like to thank Suhail Mathur also for giving me an opportunity to become a published author. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you,
Great
Manju. Thank
session,
you.
great session. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. Great fun. Thanks for having us all over here. I was a really fun, one of the nicest ones I've done. Great fun. Thank you so much, all of you.